Dela's voice has been made possible by the generosity of sponsors like you. Every single person in this world has a story to share. Your story is your superpower, and it's unique to you. In sharing it with the world, you can impact millions of people. If you keep it to yourself, you are doing the world a disservice. This is Dela. I'm the host of Dela's Voice, and I help you share your superpower with the world. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Dela's Voice Sunday live talk show. Pemphigus Vulgaris. Coincidence or fate? We'll be right back. Sakura Sutter is a radio host, spiritual hypnotherapist, intuitive medium, master esthetician, and Reiki Master. Understanding that everything is all connected, she opened Sakura Skin Mind in 2009, specializing in skincare, hypnotherapy, Reiki, and spiritual coaching. Sakura's dance with death in 2017 with Pemphigus Vulgaris forced her into healing herself. She made it her mission to share the tools and wisdom she used to navigate through this with the world. In 2018, she created her Seattle-based radio show, Love from the Hyp, to help provide resources, research, and healing wisdom from souls across the globe, making this a better place. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome on Dela's Voice, Miss Sakura Sutter.
Hello. Hi.
Welcome on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I've been so excited to meet you, Sakura. I know that we've booked this a while back, and your story is amazing, and I cannot wait to hear more. I'm just so excited for you to be here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sakura, before we start, I want to welcome everybody who's on here with us and invite all of you to leave us your comments, your experiences, your questions, and maybe, just maybe, in the second half hour of the show, we'll take a few phone calls. Your story is amazing. You are going to share with us how you learned to really, through self-love and acceptance, heal yourself. A lot of people are suffering, and I'm just hoping, my intention is that through you sharing your experience, people are going to learn. Wow, I just can't wait. So
That's my hope too.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I do believe that in sharing our stories, we can help one another. And I think you as an international radio host, first of all, wow. I know that you put in a lot of effort into making that show, and I'm sure that you're helping a lot of people. But I do want to go back in time, Sakura, and I ask you just, to share with us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up? What kind of a family did you grow up in?
I grew up in inner city Chicago, quite ethnically mixed family, pretty modest family home. But I've always been the black sheep. So I had past life encounters when I was a child. I was also kind of entertaining the other side of the veil as well and hearing things as a kid as well. So I suppressed a lot of those things. I've always felt different. And having young parents, it was really hard for them to try to figure me out as well as hold full-time jobs and, keep the family together. So I was kind of ignored and told to stop it when it was considered acting out.
Mm.
So yeah, it was, and Chicago makes you a real rough person. It allows you all the opportunities to grow though as well. So I'm very grateful for the upbringing and the family that I chose, right? You choose your family.
I believe that. Absolutely believe that.
Yeah.
First of all, I do have a question because your name Sakura, I know that in Japanese it means cherry blossom.
Yes, that's correct.
Where
So
did that
yes,
come from for you?
my mother is actually Japanese. And up until recently, I actually thought that my mother was half Japanese, and through ancestry.com, we learned that my mother is actually full Japanese, and my grandfather is not my grandfather. So I created a whole lot of drama in my
Uh-oh.
family.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
You stirred things
absolutely.
up, did
I
you?
did.
Are you a shit disturber?
Yes, yes, I am. I'm a rebel with a cause, is what I like to say.
I we need people like you in this world.
So
So that's really interesting because you grew up in a mixed race family, and that in itself has a lot. I know that that's very challenging for a lot of
yeah,
people.
and what's interesting too is I also found out that my grandmother, who was from Munich, Germany, she was adopted, and we found out that she was a Jew, so she was saved during the time.
Ah,
And she had no idea, and we actually grew up in a Hasidic Jewish neighborhood right outside of Chicago, and we were kind of shunned for not being Jewish. So and she didn't speak German, obviously, in the neighborhood, so, there was all sorts of things going on,
there's a
but
lot of layers.
yeah, a lot of layers, and, my family history too is a lot with suffering, right? My Japanese side, was interned as well in Rowe, Arkansas. So, yeah, it's what makes us stronger, right? Our roots.
Absolutely. Yes,
Mhm.
yes, absolutely. And I mean, you look at someone and you may pass them by and you don't know. You really don't know the layers in that person's life. And I
Right.
believe that every single person has a story, and it's so important for us to share these stories, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
There's so much healing in it.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
So going back now to your family history, it makes a little bit more sense to me why you got interested in all these different, modalities. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah,
that
and you don't know yourself, right? Like, you're still trying to figure out who you are, but then you have people all around you who are telling you, "No, you're not this, you're this," and really that's not the way it is until you become an adult or something happens to you, which is what happened to me, and then you really have to step in or you're encouraged to step in to who you really are. I just hope it doesn't take something that traumatic for
Mm.
someone to finally own who they are and step into their authentic self.
So, now walk us through so you're this, obviously, you already have a good understanding of how everything is all connected and body, spirit, and mind, right? And you even do hypnotherapy, and you're a
Mhm.
Reiki master, and you're a spiritual coach. And then you look at someone like this and you're like, oh, she's got it all together. She, you know nothing's gonna nothing's ever gonna happen to her.
Well, I did know that everything was all connected before I got very ill. Um, but when you're on the outside, you don't really you say things like be in the present moment and do this and you say the affirmations, but you don't really necessarily 100%, or I should say 150 to 200% believe it, because you do believe it, it's something that you're preaching, But until something really happens to you and you have to use those tools, it's like with anything, right? Until you have to use those experiences, it's really hard to say or label yourself as something, right? Until you're bringing them out of the toolkit. And so for me, I wasn't able to bring out all of my tools that I have learned throughout my whole life because, side note, the universe sets you up for everything that you could possibly need in your life. It's just the appropriate time to use it, and you have a choice of whether or not you get to use it or not. And so there came a point, and when I got sick, is when I was then able to go back and use all of those tools myself, right? Like that's the other thing is you go out and you see different healers and different facilitators, which is great. I encourage you to do that, right? It opens you up. It helps you to get other perspective when you're stuck, right? And you've got your blinders on. But then there's also a piece of it where you have to step into your own healing, right? You have to step in and take all of the things you learned and do for yourself instead of having someone else do for you.
That's hard. That's
It's
hard.
so hard.
Yeah.
It is so hard. And I really think, having been sick forced me to sit, right? I had to sit in the illness. There was nowhere I could go. I couldn't even leave the house for risk of infection. And the pain was so unbearable that I couldn't even, watch TV and something to numb my mind and distract me. There were no distractions. So I had to do the work. It
Oh,
was either that or I die from this lifetime, right? Because death is also another conversation where we still continue on our souls, but whether or not I wanted to leave this lifetime.
um, so how did you first find out about this?
Yeah. So
Okay,
I,
first of all, Pemphigus vulgaris. I had to look up how to pronounce this word.
right.
Uh,
So having been in skin for now almost 20 years, I had never heard of it. And I have worked for dermatologists. I have worked for plastic surgeons. Um, Pemphigus vulgaris is a blistering disorder. It's where they say Western medicine doctors say that your body actually attacks your skin. And so what happens is you get these tiny blisters, they're fluid-filled blisters that appear on all your mucous membranes. And so for me, it started in October of 2015. I had gone through a breakup and then I had gone back to this man. And it was right then when I went back that I got a blister in my mouth. And so I actually went to the dentist and he was unsure. He just chalked it up to being a viral infection. He sent me or encouraged me to go see my primary doctor. And I did. And I proceeded to see 4 different doctors and none of them could figure it out. I was having blood work done though. So there was obviously something wrong. My enzymes were off, my white blood cell count, red blood cell, all of that, but nobody could figure it out. And so I went on WebMD and discovered what it was myself. And then I went to a dermatologist who I had previously worked for and asked his opinion. And he said, yeah, I'm going to perform the biopsy to prove this or not, but I do believe that you're correct, unfortunately. And I had read online, that it was pretty severe or could be. But the internet always traumatizes everything or over traumatizes everything. So I just, yeah.
wow.
So it was from that point. And honestly, when I was diagnosed, I took that and ran with it. I said, okay, I'm going to do everything I can, even though it was manageable, and I was only getting 1 to 2 blisters a week, and they started appearing everywhere. So I would get them on my skin. I would get them not only they started in my mouth, but then on my skin. I would get them in my eyes. I would get them in my ears, on my scalp, also, on my nails, just everywhere. And
Oh,
then eventually, and I'll get into it, but other places as well. But I was seeking out help from every resource that I could because I'm in the holistic world and I'm surrounded by those people. So I knew to. So I was doing homeopathy, I was doing Chinese medicine and acupuncture, Chinese herbs. I even laid on a crystal bed. I had my picture sent to John of God in Brazil. I was doing everything and
anything and
nothing
everything.
was
Wow.
nothing was sticking. And I was kind of telling myself, oh no, it's getting better, mind over matter, right? I knew everything was connected. I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm doing therapy. I'm doing self-hypnosis. I'm trying everything. And then in January of 2017, when I went through a final breakup with this gentleman who I had gone back to, is when I fully flared and I couldn't keep up. So initially, what I was doing is trying to live a normal life as a single mom and running my own business as well. I hadn't started the radio show yet, but I was taking these non adhesive pads and placing them on the wounds so that I could just wear clothing.
Oh,
And I was really trying to normalize my life and go work out and go to yoga even with these pads just stuck underneath me and hiding myself and then, covering the blisters. Yeah, there you go. Covering the blisters on my face with makeup and trying to run my job and everything else. And then finally it just got to the point where, one day I was trying to put these pads on my back, right? Because my back was the worst of it. And it's hard to get to your back by yourself. And I was using the wall to help me place these pads in place. And I was having such the hardest time. And then on top of that, I could no longer wear a bra and I need to wear a bra. So I had found these adhesive pads that stick to your front. I'm sure you've seen them. And I was using that and I thought, oh yeah, I cheated. I felt like I cheated the illness. Like I found a way to wear a bra. I was excited about it. And one day and ripping off the bra, my areola right off with it. And that's when I just held up the white flag. And my family, they knew I had this illness, but they didn't quite know how bad it was. And I wasn't asking for help from anyone. So I finally had to ask for help. And I could no longer take care of myself. I couldn't take care of my daughter because, my daughter was about 10 when this was going on, and she couldn't understand what was going on. Um, so, yeah, I had to close my business. I had to go through everything that everyone else got to go through in 2020, quarantining, closing my business, not seeing any of my friends or barely, only the family that could take care of me. My family actually became my nurses, which I am so, so grateful for. But yeah, I went through all of that and then wondering if I was going to die, right? Because I'm in so much pain and then going to other doctors as well. I ended up giving in and going to see a Western medicine doctor who's a professor of dermatology here at UW, who specializes in pemphigus. And it was more so at my family's request, to go. And so I did that. And right away, I was kind of made fun of as his hippie client because I was telling him all the holistic things that I was bringing into my own healing, as well as changing my diet. So all of that. Yeah. And then I ended up having to, as I said, step into my own healing because what else was I going to do? Right.
you said you raised the white flag.
Hmm.
What does that mean?
I surrendered.
Hmm. Yeah.
I
So
was
so
like, you
what?
win.
You win. What? So what are you telling yourself at that point?
Um, I have always been such a strong, I was taught to be very strong from such a young age is you don't give up, you sacrifice, you work hard. And so the illness was essentially asking me to work hard. And that's what I was doing. But I also needed to stop, right? I needed to stop to give myself the time to actually heal properly. If that's what was going to happen, right? But I needed at least the space away from my job. I needed the space away from being a mother. I needed to take off all my hats and just focus on actually being sick, which is what I was trying not to do the whole time, right? Mind over matter, mind over matter. So there's that other side to mind over matter as far as being on your path and being more spiritual and thinking that, oh, if I think positively, yes, part of that is true. but there's also the doing and the believing aspect of it too, and also healing those traumas, right? Because otherwise you're really lying to yourself. And so I had to sit with the illness and I had to sit with being sick.
At this point now, you've been sick for 2 years, from 2015 to 2017 is when you
Yeah.
finally said, okay, that's it. I give up. Help me, show me the way. Like,
Right.
show me what to. So that's a long time in suffering, Sakura.
Yeah. It was, they say child labor is bad, but I have to say, yeah, I
Oh,
don't,
no.
I I get letters from around the world. I get emails from people from around the world who are suffering with pemphigus vulgaris. And actually, mostly it's their family members because they're too sick to even talk to anybody. And I get questions about what do I take? What medicines do you take? Right. And it's more than that. And so when I did move in with my parents, and at first I was doing the whole woe is me, why me, and also very angry, right? At spirit, God, source, whatever you believe in, because I had been
I'm a
doing
good person.
that, yeah, that, and I had been doing the work, right?
Yes.
Like I had been meditating, I had been doing all the work, and why me, right? And then I had to let that go because that wasn't getting me anywhere. And in fact, that was just increasing the pain and the inflammation and the suffering. And fortunately, I have a very tough mother. I've seen her cry maybe twice my whole life. And so being around her while I was sick, she never once shed a tear. And she would kind of almost yell at me like, "Why are you crying? Get over this. Move on. You have a daughter, you have reasons to live. Make that your reason," right? And so that was actually quite helpful. Although it seemed very harsh, it was very helpful. And so I decided to read up on the medical medium, and read on other functional medicine doctors who said that autoimmune is not your body attacking itself. There's an underlying root cause, and typically it's a virus. So I started to treat my body like there was a virus. There was an invader, right? There was an intruder. And so I went vegan. I eliminated a lot of foods from my diet as well. I was already gluten free, so that was easy. Went dairy free, and then included supplements to actually starve out a virus, like licorice root, for instance. So I was doing all those things. And then on top of that, a colleague of mine volunteered her services, and I was doing hypnotherapy weekly, as well as theta healing. And I was doing these in my bleach baths that I had to take. I had to take bleach baths twice a day, and I would actually lay in them for 2 to 3 hours at a time because I found so much relief, not in the bleach, right? Although I was adding essential oils to make it more holistic, or in my mind, better for me. But because of the buoyancy, right? I wasn't having to put pressure on my body because my body hurt so bad that, any pressure on my body would actually tear the skin open because I was on such a high dose of steroids. My skin was like tissue. And that's what Western medicine does, is they put you on these immune suppressants. When How do you heal wounds, right? When you have something keeping you from healing. So it was kind of counterintuitive. But anyway, I was doing these therapies in my bleach bath once a week. And I found that I not only had my own stuff to heal, which was related to self hatred, right? And everything toxic that I had ever absorbed, but it was also ancestral trauma that I had to heal. And again, with my Japanese side, there was so much with especially the women who just took on such toxic and abusive relationships and internalized all of that, right? And so here I am, and what's a blister, right? It's like fire, it's like rage coming out. It's all of that coming out up to the surface and boiling over, right? So your skin, as a skincare therapist, I know your skin is kind of it's your protective barrier, right? It's to keep you safe, but it's also your boundaries of what you let in, right? And so for me, that was kind of my metaphorical, okay, this is it. This is your last opportunity to step in and take care of these things. And as far as the ancestral trauma goes, I have learned with epigenetics is all that trauma is typically put on one of the strongest people in the lineage, right? The person they know that can stop it for the rest of everyone else in your family line.
So, okay, explain that a little bit more, please, about epigenetics, if
Yeah.
you
So
could, just to make it a little more
yeah.
clear.
So in science, they've proven, right, that things do get passed down from the mother in, in the womb and in your DNA. And it's not just illness, it's also guilt, anger, right? It's the emotions that get passed through as well. Like that's been scientifically proven. And so
So much sense.
and it goes back, right? Yeah, it does. It makes so much sense, right? I mean, like, even just, they even say, like, as a Catholic, you just all of a sudden you're born with guilt, right? It's just
Yeah.
because it's been passed down so many times. Like, so many people have felt that. Why would you think it wouldn't, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
if we're all energy in quantum physics, we are just energy, then emotions are energy too,
Yes.
right? It's energy in motion, emotion, right?
Absolutely.
So so why wouldn't it get passed down? So yes, I didn't realize that I was carrying all of it until I was doing theta healing, which helps you to go back different generations and people come forward from your ancestry line and present to you, what they suffered with or the pain that you need to heal or let go or the conversation that needs to happen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So theta is if I'm not mistaken, is a vibration level of
It's very similar to hypnosis. I'm not a theta healer, so I probably won't give it the best explanation that it deserves. But it's similar to hypnosis, where you're put into a very lucid state, and then you're able to actually go back. The theta facilitator will bring you back generations, and things will just pop up. Stories will just come up in your mind, and you will share those. And these are your ancestors actually bringing those stories to you.
wow.
So,
And you're able to see all these traumas that has been passed down to you generation from generation and
yeah, like a movie. I mean, it
mm,
just presents to you like a movie and yeah, you bring all of that forward. So I was processing ancestral trauma, but also my own trauma. And part of that was never being who I really am. And that started as a child, but it got triggered during that relationship that I was in for so long while I was sick, right? I got sick because a lot of different reasons, but the icing on the cake was that I went back into that relationship that was requiring or asking me to be somebody I wasn't,
yeah. And
right?
I mean, I wanna know why. Obviously, I wanna ask you why, but I kinda have a feeling why. But
Well,
why?
it's because we've
Why
it
did you go back?
you think it's what you deserve,
Yeah.
right? I had low self-worth, I was told I would never amount to anything. I was told that I would never financially be able to leave this person.
Wow.
The things that were said, and yes, he's saying them out of hurt, doesn't make it right, but obviously there's two people to tango, right? Two people in every relationship. So it's not all his fault.
Yeah.
I also decided to be there, but I also had lessons to learn. And unfortunately, the lesson for me was through illness and dis-ease, right? Because dis-ease, I say, is just a temporary misalignment with the person you were supposed to be, the being that you are meant to be.
I love that. I
Mm.
love that.
Thank you.
Because I feel like there's a lot of hope in that, and there's also an immense amount of control. Um, because if we can understand that, then we can heal from anything.
Exactly. And you have to understand that your body is an amazing, miraculous machine, right? Like if you look at me now, I mean, I still have some spots where there were open wounds, but I mean, I couldn't walk. I was in a wheelchair. I was
Aw.
sleeping on ice packs. I mean, I had ice packs lined on my bed to help numb me so that I could fall asleep.
And what is
Yeah, I
this?
had pads placed all over anywhere I sat because I couldn't wear clothing. I was just drenched basically in Vaseline.
Ah,
And so we would use these pads and create these surfaces that we would rub down. So the alternative for pemphigus vulgaris when it's that bad is to go into the hospital. But a majority of the people that go into the hospital die. They either get sepsis or some other infection.
yeah.
And so my doctor actually encouraged me to stay home with my family. And I was lucky enough to have family that could take care of me in that way. But yeah, I had pads everywhere.
There
So,
was one of the pictures you sent me. I looked at that picture and I sobbed. 'Cause
oh,
there's so much hurt, and you seem such a strong person, but looking at this picture and the tear in your eyes,
mm, yeah, that
what were
was
you thinking here?
that was that was it. That was at the end of it that I couldn't do it by myself anymore. And that picture, you could see I had blisters on my lip, um, underneath. I couldn't do it anymore. And so I sent that photo to my family, my cousins actually, and uh, they were the ones that were like, "No, no more. You're not doing this by yourself anymore." And these were my cousins that don't even live here. They're back in Chicago, but our family is that tight. We're that close. We do anything for each other. And despite them not being here, they said, "We'll do whatever it takes. We'll raise money for you. We'll start a GoFundMe. You need to close your business. You can't do this anymore." So,
You gotta take care of you.
mhm.
I wanna take a break,
Okay.
and when we come back, we're gonna have a look at the, comments and, see what people have got to say, okay? We'll
Okay.
be right back. And we're back with Sakura Sutter. Okay, let's see what the comments section has in store for us.
Mm.
Michael Koss, he says, "You are an inspiration to me and to others."
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Marianne says, "Self love and self worth are the foundation of everything." And Robert Brooker says, "Those are challenging things to go through. That is for sure, right? For
Yeah.
sure." Michael Costs actually asking a very good question. What was your driving force in what you went through?
My daughter
Mm,
was my driving force. She gave me a purpose for being here, right? And I would also say just curiosity of where this was going because intuitively, right? I knew that your soul signs up for everything that you go through in your life. And you may not understand why and when you're going through it, but it will all make sense afterwards. And so I was waiting for that point of where it was going to make sense. And I knew that this wasn't my exit. And and really it was when I surrendered to the illness and not just in the beginning when I moved in with my family and surrendered with the white flag there, but really when aside from changing my diet, being with my thoughts and being in the bathtub, um, surrendering to it and asking it, why are you here?
mm,
What purpose do you have for me? Because everything serves a purpose. Nothing happens to you, right? Everything happens for you. And as I said, it's really hard to see that when you're in the thick of it, but you have to trust that there's a silver lining and that there's a bigger reason for it. And a lot of times with illness and disease or even just any emotion, anger, it is asking of you to be you, right? And so what is that? It's just like I said, temporary misalignment. So what is it that you need to do to be you? And I encourage everyone Please be you. Do you be you. And if you don't know who you are, which is okay, most people don't know who they are because they're told otherwise. Take the time to find out who you are. It doesn't take, minutes a day, even if you're busy with work. Find the time because you're important, right?
Jason's asking, what would you say to someone who really wants to heal and knows wellness but feels stuck in dis-ease?
Yeah. Well, that's where I would say opening up to other people first, other facilitators, other healers. There are people like myself. This is what I do for a living. I'm a healer, um, and seeking out people who've been there, who understand, but who are also willing to allow you to step into your own healing as well. I mean, that's another big part of my own healing was I had to not give it over to the doctors, right? As much as I mean, the thing that bothered me was I was told that there was no cure for pemphigus right away.
Hello.
And
Right?
yeah. But also, how can you say that when you don't really understand what it is? Plus, each individual is so different. As you know, with everyone's story, everyone has a story, and everyone's story is so uniquely different. And that story, though, has so many things in it, right? Woven into it that can contribute to the where they're at as far as illness goes or disease, which is different than the next. So, how can you say that? And I didn't hear it. When I was told it, I didn't hear it. I didn't care. And I had been told it multiple times and I wasn't listening. That part I wasn't grasping, right? No, I get to make this my own and I get to have my own healing experience. And so I would say that that would be my advice though, is to there are other people here to help. That is my mission here now. And that's why I created my radio show is I wanted a platform for people to go to that were suffering from whatever they were suffering from, to know that A, you're not alone, and B, there are other resources out there for you. You don't have to feel stuck.
Um, Tell us how we can listen to your radio show.
Yeah. So it airs on Wednesdays from 2 to 3 p.m. Pacific time on AM 1150 KKNW. So you can go to 1150kknw.com or there's an app as well, KKNW, N as in Nancy, AM, and that's an app. It also replays on Sundays on two other networks, one in Cape Town, South Africa. So you can listen in on Sundays from 9 to 10 p.m. Cape Town time on Zone Radio .co.za or also on KBKW on Sundays from noon to 1 p.m. And that is on gograceharbor.com. So, and then there's a podcast. So you can find Love from the Hip, HYP as in hypnotherapist. I also have another two shows, Go Beyond the Veil and the Conscious Coaching Hour with my lovely co-hosts.
Amazing. So you're doing so much to get the message out. And so that's exactly it. We don't have to do this alone. There are so many people, just like when, when you think of I don't know, fixing your car, you don't
Yeah.
want to tackle that by yourself. You know,
Right.
you take it to someone who knows. Um yeah, we need help with this. We can't do it on our own. And
And
there's
it's okay
people
to
like
ask for help.
you. It's okay, right? It's okay. Um, Erin says, I believe you can find purpose in your pain.
Yes.
And you're going to get to that.
Yeah. As I said, everything happens for you, not to you. And as hard as it may seem to say, this was a blessing for me. Because had I not gone through what I went through, I wouldn't be on the other side helping people. And so I've made it my mission to help people. And the radio seemed like the best thing, right? The best platform to do so.
Had you ever
And
done anything like that before?
no, I no, no training in broadcast.
And of
I never went
course,
to
it makes total
school,
sense. Why not?
right? I'd always been that way though as a child. I was very confident, like overly confident about anything that came my way, like doing makeup for Michael Jordan's wife. Yeah, I can do it, no problem. Never done makeup in my life,
You
you
did
know.
Michael Jordan's wife's makeup?
Ex-wife, yes. Yes,
Oh,
I did
what?
in Chicago. So there's plenty of opportunities that I became bigger than, right? I had that confidence. So same thing with radio. I pitched my show to the network. They loved it. Never done radio in my life. And it just fit. Although I did walk around with a tape recorder when I was a child and pretend to do commercials and game shows with the neighborhood kids. So kind of doing radio, I guess you could say, early
Yes.
stages. So, yeah, so being sick, I realized gave me this purpose, and it was to give back, right? And to be in service to other people
Mm.
because we
I
have too much suffering in this world.
We do, and I was gonna say, and it's not just pemphigus
No,
vulgaris. It's so
yeah,
many other diseases that, traditional medicine will probably say, "Oh, there's no cure for this," and
yeah,
this is the end of it,
exactly.
sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And the main goal of my show too was to help people to not only heal themselves or be involved in their healing, but to also love themselves again. Because that was the biggest piece for me was to love myself. And I had to learn to love myself when I looked the worst I have
Mm,
ever have in my whole entire life, right? Just open wounds everywhere, moon face from steroids,
and in
feeling,
pain.
yeah, I was going to say feeling like crap. I had to really love myself. And I knew then if I could love myself at that point, that I could love myself in at any point in life.
What does it look like, loving yourself fully?
It's it feels easy, and the boundaries are just there, right? You don't take crap from anybody anymore. You know your worth and you don't stretch yourself thin. You actually can say no to things. And it's also self-care. It's taking the time for yourself, right? Loving yourself and giving yourself buying yourself flowers, taking yourself on a date, but also meditation, doing all the things, taking a bubble bath, whatever it is, self care. But self love for me really, to find out if it really was sticking and it was really working, right? Um, was being in relationships. So when I started to date, and mind you, a client recommended that I date. So when I came back from being sick, I had been inside for months, right? I had been stuck inside for months. The last thing I wanted to do was be home. So aside from going back to work, a client encouraged me to date online. I was like, "Are you crazy?" I still had wounds that were, scabbing over and covering up and she encouraged me. She's like, "No, just get out there." And actually it was really good for me because I realized that I wasn't the same person I was when I had been dating prior. I was sacrificing before. I was, allowing myself to feel small. I was allowing them to, make me feel so small. And that wasn't happening anymore. So that's how I knew also.
And, that's a big journey. I think for a lot of people, that's a big journey to actually get there where you can admit to yourself that, "No, I fully have come to this place of self-love and self-acceptance."
Yeah.
I mean, it seems so big, and I don't know if I'm there.
Yeah.
I
It
don't
takes
know.
time, and I the other thing about it is the self-acceptance piece, which is also very important, because that was part of my journey as well. When I finally did that, all my gifts, if you will, came back to me. And so I'm an intuitive medium, and I have been since I was a child, but I suppressed it. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't have any mentors or people to help me through it. And so I shut it off. And when I stepped into myself again and loved myself for who I am, all of my gifts came back. And so I started to then see spirits. I mean, I was doing facials on my clients, and their deceased loved ones would come in and stand next to the table waiting to share a message, right? And so
And what
that,
did you do with that?
it freaked me out at first.
Yeah.
And I was like, nope, not seeing it, not seeing it, it's not here. Mind over matter, not happening, right? And or also, I'm not going to do that. They're going to think I'm crazy. And it was
Uh-huh.
almost like they kept nagging me. Just do it. Just do it. They were super persistent. So I would eventually say it. And it was like they were waiting to hear that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you gotta tell me, what was like the first experience you had, or something that pops up in your mind?
So I had a gentleman who had never had energy work before. He came in for actually Reiki, because I'm a Reiki master too. But I hadn't even dove into the intuitive mediumship yet. And there was this older woman that was standing by the bed, the table, the treatment table, and she had this cute little, haircut and everything else, big smile. And she's like, "Tell him that Harriet's here." I'm like, "I'm not going to tell him Harriet's here. Who's Harriet? What are you doing in my room?" And she was very persistent. And then I'm like, "Well, she's my elder. I have to respect my elder. And so I said, I don't know how to say this, but do you know a Harriet? She's passed." And he freaked out. It was as if he jumped off the table. He's like, "Yeah, that's my mother-in-law, and she just passed." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." And her message was really just about him enjoying his life, living his life, right? Because she had regretted not fully living her life, you know.
Oh, man.
And so there's always something. I had another woman, her niece was actually died quite traumatically. And so she had questions. And, and so these are things that people need to hear. And it helps them through the grieving process, right?
Sure. And you
Um,
had all these gifts, and you had suppressed them
yeah.
because as a kid, you weren't allowed to, or right, for
I
some
was
reason.
weird already,
Mm.
Not to mention I have dark, dark hair naturally and real pale skin. So I was called a witch in high school, even
Mm.
just for the way I looked. I
Fun.
wasn't, even though I was, kind of dabbling into witchcraft, but nobody knew that. So yeah,
Excuse me. So yeah, so self-acceptance means accepting all these weird parts of yourself that other people called weird, obviously. But
right.
that's what makes you unique, and that's what makes you special and a gift to this world. And so how many people do we know that are hiding their gifts because they're afraid of how it would show up?
Yeah, I can't tell you. It's just about every day when I'm out in the world, whether it's my cashier or someone at the gym. I like to have conversation with strangers, and after I tell them what I do for a living, they share with me, "Oh, I'm going to let you in on a secret." It always starts that way. "I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I've heard voices, or I've smelt, the incense at the burials before, and then found out 3 days later that a person died, or whatever it is, the weird things, the woo woo stuff they share with me, and it's been wanting to get out, right? And then at the same time they say, "Oh, it doesn't really happen anymore," and it's because they're not connected with who they are. And so what I say to people is, the more self-acceptance you have, you're going to find these treasures, right? Just so many opportunities that are going to come in once you have full acceptance for yourself, and also self-worth and self-love. There are so many opportunities that the universe just wants to send your way, and you've had your door closed for so long. So open it up. It's time to open it up.
What's the first step?
To open up the doors. Well, I would say to start sitting with yourself, right? And I love using a mirror. I think the mirror technique is great. And seeing yourself, and sit in a mirror with yourself. Like, can you sit with yourself in the mirror and
It's
actually say,
hard.
yeah, not, I mean, some people can't even just look at themselves. So, like, I'd start with that, being able to sit in the mirror and looking at yourself and smile, and then have a conversation with yourself. What do you want to tell yourself? What have you been meaning to tell yourself? And get rid of that negative self-talk, because that's not doing you any good, right? And so I think that that's the first step, is to get to know you, connect with yourself, and find out all those little things that you did when you were little. Do those things again, right? Connect with that inner child, that
I always
creative
go
side.
back to that. Always. It always goes back to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So much healing in what you said. And so I want to ask you, did you look in the mirror while you were going through all that, and with all the, I mean, I would think that I would avoid the mirror because
Yeah.
it just is, it's a constant reminder. Wait,
Um,
what
I
did you
had to. So initially, the mirror was kind of my guide for helping me to place these pads on my back and the back side of me, right? But then as as it as I went through this, actually the mirror became the truth holder. I mean, the mirror wasn't going to sugarcoat anything. It was going
Mm.
to show me exactly how things were. And so the mirror allowed me to do my own therapy, if you will, and see myself every day, crying, whatever it is, see the pain, accepting myself for all of that, thanking my body for going through what it's going through, to just to bring those lessons to me,
Ah,
forgiving myself for not seeing this, for not, or seeing it but not dealing with it sooner, and then loving myself as ugly as I looked to myself, loving myself for who I am. And yeah, it was really hard. It was hellish at most times, but it's what I recommend people do. And it's actually, I have a book collaboration coming out in December.
how exciting.
Yeah, where I share the story, briefly, you know, 3,000 word count briefly, but I also share a tool, and the tool is the mirror method. I call it the sassy mirror method, to help people to work through whatever illness or disease, and not even have to be visible, just whatever it is you're trying to work through.
Can you give us a sneak peek?
Well, so the sassy mirror method, it's an acronym, and I had to say sassy because I guess some people say that I am.
Ah!
But
See that?
so it's first seeing yourself, right? Seeing yourself fully, and that's the hardest part. Even when you don't have a visible illness, it's hard for people to sit in the mirror and look at themselves.
Yeah.
So see yourself, right?
Yeah.
And sit with yourself. And then you can also, I also recommend, so the next step is asking. So this illness, whatever you're going through, the disease doesn't define who you are, right? And so you want to bring it out of you as if it's a separate person and ask it why it's there. I never once identified, I have, or I have this, or, anytime that you give ownership to something, it's going to be hard to get rid of. So when you look for a diagnosis, while it's helpful to find tools to help treat it, don't get married to it. Let it go.
So what do you change it to?
Well, you just say, you know, I'm working through this,
Hmm.
right? Because that's really what you're doing. You don't have it. It's not who you are. It doesn't define who you are. It's
Or I hear a lot of people say I'm this, I'm that,
I am
right?
sick. I am, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm. That's also, yeah.
makes
So
sense.
stay away from those. And it's kind of like the doctor telling you there's no cure, right? You
Yeah,
get stuck with it.
yeah.
Don't listen to that either. You make your own story. And so then the third step is solutions. So we all have answers to all of our issues. And I know this as a hypnotherapist, because people come in and they say, I don't know why I can't sleep. I haven't been able to sleep for 15 years. And once we get in there, they know exactly why they're not sleeping. And I'm just the mediator between them and themselves. And so I relay the message. So everybody has the answers. And so, especially when you're sick, especially when you're disgruntled or you have some sort of misalignment, So when you're sitting in that mirror, ask for the solutions and see what pops up. And sometimes it may seem so crazy and absurd, and maybe your mind works in metaphors and you have to decipher it, then fine. But nothing is crazy. Just see what comes forward in your mind as you sit there. Um, and then the fourth step, which is also one of the hardest steps to do, is to surrender,
Mm.
right? Especially when you're sick. Because that fighting, while you're fighting to be here, that's a different story. But you're surrendering to the illness to know why it's here, but also trusting that it's here for a reason.
There's a reason.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, the hardest step to do. And then step 5 is yourself, right? It's remembering why you're here. It's loving yourself, it's accepting yourself, it's forgiving yourself, you know, it's just yourself, right? And so I feel that these are things that can help people to move through whatever it is they're suffering from.
I love that. That's your
Thank
sassy
you.
solution.
Yeah.
Amazing. I really, really resonate with everything you said today. I mean, we all have things that we suffer through, whether they're physical or emotional. But I find that a lot of people who are going through a lot of emotional crap, it always shows up in the physical.
Right.
So very, I mean, for me, it was like it was very, very small compared to what you went through, but definitely, definitely, I really feel that when I got really sick 4 years ago, and I thought I was going to die, it was all my emotional pain that
Mm,
was surfacing finally, trying to grab my attention. And I remember walking into the bathroom mirror and looking up and just saying, "What's the reason for this? Like, what am I
mm,
supposed to learn from this?" And that's the surrendering.
yeah. You
Yeah.
stepped into it. Yeah, and for me, it's not like I didn't have other physical things prior to pemphigus. I had smaller issues, right? I had leaky gut for many years. I had food sensitivities. I had vertigo. So I had other issues trying to get my attention. But what's the one thing that would get my attention? Skin.
Of course, you're a skin specialist.
Mhm. Yeah. So, yeah, my soul also has a really sick sense of humor,
Oh,
but
yes.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So it finally
True.
took that. And,
Mhm.
and had I not listened to this, I could have either died or it could have been something worse. I don't know what's worse, honestly. I mean, there are worse things, but
So coincidence or fate? That's our final question.
yeah, as I said, the soul signs up for everything that you go through in this lifetime. You have free will as far as how you maybe want to learn the lesson. But I do believe that you're fated. It's not coincidence. You're not a victim of your life. You create everything around you. And if you're not happy with what you're seeing around you, you got to change what's going on inside of you. And I'm
Amazing.
a walking testimony for that.
Yeah. Sakura, I want to thank you so much for being here today. It
Thank
was
you for having me.
so thoroughly enjoyable listening to you. And I know there's tons of comments, and I mean, if I read all the comments, we would not have time to speak at all. So thank you for everybody who's left the comments, for every single one of you who's spent your time here today. It's not coincidence that you've been listening to this message.
Yeah.
It's fate. So share this with other people who you think might benefit from the message shared here, who need a little bit of inspiration from such an incredible story, a miracle, really. What how I see it. I want to give you a couple of more minutes, Sakura, to leave us with whatever you like.
Yeah, thank you for having me for this opportunity to share that my story with everyone. Don't give up. It's what I say. Don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. You know, when most of the world and other people, you feel like most of the world and other people have, you be there for you. You need yourself more than anything, especially when you're sick. So don't give up.
One more time, your radio show is called Love from the Hip.
Love from the Hip. I also have Go Beyond the Veil and the Conscious Coaching Hour. And then my business, Sakura Skin Mind, I also do remote work, remote sessions with hypnosis and energy work. So again, that's sakuraskinandmind.com.
Amazing.
And yeah, and feel free to reach out. You can reach out at sakurasutter.com. You can find me there.
You can find her on Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook.
So she's tagged in this post if you're watching this on Facebook. She's easy to find. She wants to be found because this is her purpose is to help other people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Again.
you. Thank you very much.
It was lovely having you on Dela's Voice. For everyone who's been watching, I want to thank you for giving us your hour and hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Once again, this was Dela's Voice, sparking your soul. Until next time. Thank you, Sakura.
Thank you.